Good morning, everyone. We are coming to you live via YouTube streaming, via Facebook streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcomed to this live session. Lataifs and 9-point according to Sufi terminology. There is a question. It is in response to that. Someone has asked, these stations of the heart are the center of 9 points which responds to locus of revelation and inspiration of the divine presence in the heart of human beings. These 9 points are located on the chest of each person and represent 9 different states in every human being. Every state is connected to a saint who has authority to control these points. The question is, what are these 9 points, and do you have some picture to illustrate where these points are located in the body and relates to some other things? Number 1, the Sheiks and the Masters, for the sake of the seekers, from time to time have drawn a sketch. Lalaji has drawn a sketch which was in the biography of Lalaji and Chachaji, written by his nephew Sufi Brij Mohan Lal, where these are mentioned and a line draw image is there. Sheikh Nazim and Sheikh Hisham Kabani use the colored images. Theoretically, if you want to understand, you may feel that you have known the theory. But when it comes to the practical aspect, many problem comes in. You may know how to make the bread. You have noted down the recipe and everything. If the recipe calls for a particular aspect, saute onion for 1 minute. Theory is very easy. I am going to saute the onion for 1 minute. But it depends on many factors. The first and the foremost factor is the thickness of the onion that you cut. Are they even or not? They are sliced or diced or chopped into cubes. Then the flame of your stove. I was invited once to do a cooking demo. The stove was lighting like a candle. Now if it says saute for 1 minute on that candle, the burners were so dirty that the flame was coming up like almost like a candle. So the size, the BTU, the unit in which the stoves, burners are measured, it depends on that. Secondly, it depends on the thickness of the pot in which you are frying. If it is a light bottom, it will burn. You cannot have it on a medium to low flame. When the instructor says saute it for 1 minute on medium to low heat or high heat. So all these factors are important. And you as a novice, you have not gotten a practical training in the company of a sheikh, in the company of an expert chef. You will not be able to make a bread or anything. You may have to experiment many times, but when you are in the company of an expert chef, that is what is called nuances, the fine tuning, and that makes it very easy. When you sit down in the company of the master, the energy flows, it goes through the various centers, various points, and you feel it. I will give you an example, but there are many things to be explained in this. The shapes, the relationship with Salah, the 5 points of the heart, the anagram, and the role of Gurdjieff in that. If you look at the sign of Shri Aurobindo, 2 isosceles triangles are placed one top of the other. One is placed inverted, the other is normal. The base is below and the pointed is on top. The other triangle, the peak touches the peak of the below one, and the base remains on top. So thus there are 2 bases inverted and 2 base points, the below triangle, and the 2 peaks are touching one another. This is represented by a percussion instrument of Shiva known as Damru. Its shape is like a stool, but it is a percussion instrument which he used. One can hold it in one hand and create this sound as a percussion instrument. It is very symbolic in the development of an individual. The heart center, Lalaji explained that in the heart center, the 2 centers are below, exactly below the nipples on either side, 2 inches below, and 2 are 2 inches above the nipples. These points are not in the physical body. Your awareness is only of the physical body. They exist in the third. When you transcend the physical body through meditation, only then you come to feel the energy body. So when you sit down in the company of a sheikh, sometimes it can happen on its own, and sometimes when you sit down in the company of a sheikh, then it becomes a lot easier, the movement of these. One can very easily go through these stages. The energy touches on the particular center, it gets activated, and so on and so forth. The journey continues. Just a second, something is here. So it is very difficult to know theoretically. There is a vast difference between theoretically knowing something and practically knowing something. And in order to understand that, the difference between the two, theoretically and the physically, you need a guide who can take you through those stages. Otherwise, on your own, it becomes difficult. So, in order to understand this, we have to know the Swiss mathematician Leonhard Euler. He was a physicist, mathematician, astronomer, geographer, logician, an engineer who made important, influential discoveries in many branches of mathematics, such as infinitesimal calculus, graph theory, and other fields. So 9 points they center, and this Euler's lines are helpful in that matter. I will look into in a systematic manner. That's why things like these takes a little while. How can you bring it down to a level that mind can understand? Because something that has been experienced by the consciousness in a state of Marakba by the masters, and it is being now translated to the mind. So the state of mind is important, and explanations. So certain things had to be taken into account. Now, Muslims are asked to offer namaz at 5 times. 5 times. Fajr, Asr, Zuhr, Isa, and Maghrib. These are the names given to 5 prayers offered, performed by the Muslim as incumbent on him. Each one of this prayer, when it is done properly, not a ritual, it works on a particular heart center. The Kalp, the Maghrib prayer, works on the Kalp center. Now, out of these 5 that I mentioned, the 2 centers below, 2 inches below the nipple, 2 centers above the nipple, and 1 below the nipples in the center. These are 5. And the 6th is transcendental. So sometimes a question comes in when you see in some images 5, some images 6. 6th refers to the transcendental. Now the location in the image by Sheikh Sham, it has been explained. On the right hand side, below the nipple, that is the center of Kalp. At the same level on the left hand side is Ruh. Sir is above on the right hand side, and Khafi is on the left side. That makes it 4. And then comes Akfa, that is in the middle between the 2 nipples. So the Maghrib prayer, an invocation or the opening of the heart center, are related to one another. Its color is yellow. The second comes the above the nipples on the right hand side, known as Sir, or color is secret red, and it connects to the prayer Isa. Those who are Muslims, they are aware of the timings of these prayers. The Shazda, the words, the way it is performed, there is a slight difference in each prayer. Then the third is connected to the prayer Zohar. Then the Khafa, which is Khafi, it relates to the point above the nipples on the left hand side. Khafi means silent. There are 2 words when you are chanting a particular mantra. You can do it with sound, zikr zehr. In the beginning, one begins with chanting it with a labial sound. It is called zikr zehr. And when this heart center is invoked, Then the seeker goes into the silent, there is soundless chanting of the prayer, of the particular zikr or mantra. This is hidden green and it relates to the prayer asl. Then akfa, which relates to the morning prayer fajr. So these 5 prayers are related according to the Islamic tradition to the opening of these 5 heart centers. The 6th is the transcendental. If we go through the Euler's or the mathematics, there are formulas, and so that is not our concern. Now I will go on one of the important points, the 3, 6 and 9. The entire spirituality can be condensed into 3 numbers. 9 is the most perfect number. And after 9 comes 10. 10 is a combination of 2 numbers, 1 and 0. 9 is the last single number. According to Hindus, whenever any prayer is done, for instance, the Ganesh prayer, 9 days you learn, and on the 10th day, whatsoever you have learned, you have to offer it to the existence. So all the rituals are done for 9 days. During this period, a statue of Ganesh is made that is easily decomposable in water, and on the 10th day it is submerged in the ocean. Means whatsoever you have learned, you return it to the existence, and then it is born in you as your own growth. In Zen Buddhism, it is said that you learn something for a certain number of years, you attain excellence, be it archery, be it anything, and after that you forget all about it for the same number of years. During this period, it grows out of you as your own growth. Otherwise, it is theoretical knowledge. It is not awakening. So, with a deep understanding, you can bring the different points, different angles to explain one single point. There is no need to bring Leonard Euler or the Zen or Gurdjieff or anyone. Now, when you look into Euler's, it helps you to understand the 9 points. It is not the The human psychology, human anatomy, biology remains the same. It knows not the religion, color, caste, or creed. It only understands three things. So the number 3 refers to the three in science: neurons, protons, and electrons. It is out of the combination of the three atom the smallest particle is formed. You can take this analogy. So the isosceles triangle, it has 3 peaks, each at 60-degree angle to make the triangle 180 degrees and 80 degree. And when it is inverted, it represents the 3 top centers. Now you say in the body, these centers are in a straight line, but when I am talking about the triangle which is placed on top inverted, the 2 centers, the throat center, the center of expression, the center of command, and the center, the crown, is represented by these, and it is when these centers begin to function, then grace descends on an individual. Grace is not your doing. It is like water has started boiling. When it is covered with the lid, the water vapors accumulate in the inside layer of the cover, and process of condensation begins. If the lid is removed, all the water evaporates and becomes steam and disappears in the unknown oblivion to form as clouds, and then through the process of condensation or what it may be, it showers on us, and the water that is evaporated because of the intense heat from the surface of the rivers, ponds, wherever the water is, and when it goes through the process of evaporation and condensation, it becomes purest. That is why in science this technique of evaporating and condensation is considered as an important aspect, known as distilling. The below triangle refers to the 3 lower centers. The earth center, the water center, and the solar plexus. So when the peak of the 2 meet one another, from below, the process of evaporating, boiling the water begins, and from above the grace descends. This is represented with the symbol of Shiva's percussion instrument, Damru. So this shape is slightly different, but the basic principle is the same. Percussion instrument means the lower center acts as percussion instruments, and anything higher has to be tuned with the lower. Higher alone cannot develop on its own, the lower alone cannot develop on its own. Even in the musical concert, each instrument is tuned in, whether it is percussion instrument or wind instrument, everything is tuned in with the wind instrument, which is known as harmonium, the basic instrument. So whatsoever it is, be the instrument, whether it is the stringed instrument or percussion instrument. Stringed instruments are the above the solar plexus. When the air is blown into it, and the flute and other stringed instruments comes in that category. Below is percussion instrument, the drums. So when a fetus is in the mother's womb, there is a sound. Hammering is like percussion instrument, and when a seeker is asked to work on the solar plexus, it is hammering the solar plexus like the percussion, making tuning in the percussion instrument. Tuning in the percussion instrument. This has to be kept in mind, all these things together, then it becomes easier to understand. First of all, each center relates to a particular prayer. There are basically the ovum and sperm, and the child is the transcendence. When the two merge into one another, there is transcendence. When 5 different elements goes into something, a 6th is formed. 6th is different than all the 5 elements. In order to make the tea, you need water, you need milk, you need tea leaf, you need sugar, and you need the fire. Fire helps to blend all these instruments together. Without the fire, the tea leaf will not leave its quality. Sugar leaves its quality because of the heat. So water, sugar, milk, tea leaf, and fire, 5 elements put together, and you get a 6th. Very simple, but we make it complicated. The mind makes everything complicated. If you understand this principle, tea, the water loses its significance, the tea leaf gives its quality and disappears, is removed. You do not offer the tea to someone with the loose tea floating into it. Sugar melts into it. The fire has finished its role and is no more needed. The milk helps to change the color of the tea from the dark brown to a light brown, or depends upon what kind of color do you want, strength that you want. Does tea have, can you separate from the tea anything? Water can be separated, or the tea leaf, or the sugar, or the milk? When an alchemical process takes place within, a rose with pink petals is born with a different fragrance. The fragrance of a pink rose will differ than the orange or red or any other color of the rose. A scientist, a chemist can dissect all these, but will not put back together. Spirituality is the science of joining together and then transcending. So when it is said in that image, are there 5 centers or 6? When the 5 are merged into one another, you attain to the stage of transcendence. That's why symbolically it is shown 6. To understand these 2 inverted triangles, this is where the geometry comes in. It helps you to understand. Then it happened, the practical aspect of how it happened, how Gurdjieff was given an experience of these 5 points, I will take into tomorrow's session, because that takes a little. Still, there are certain things which needs to be explained, and the 9 points, you can see the symbols, but these refer, according to the Sufi terminology, 9 different saints who are at the highest level of the divine presence. According to the Hindus, there are 7 sages known as Sapt, means 7, Rishi means sages. It is said that Shiva went into intense meditation and he unearthed certain secrets. He wanted it to be known through these 7 sages. He was explaining the art of inward journey to these sages. And when a particular point is mentioned, when all these 7 sages agree on one particular point, that becomes the truth. In an ordinary business organization, there are some important key persons: the managing director, the finance, and so on and so forth. When a particular project is to be undertaken, a proposal is placed, everyone looks with their own awareness. The finance will look into how much finance will be required. Then the others, and after that, when all of them agree on one particular point, then it will be the accepted and the project will get a go ahead. So in the same way, for the revelation of the truth, when something, your heart says something, but when you look into the other aspects are not agreeing with that. So unless it becomes a solitary truth at all the different, so these 9 sages or the saints who are connected to each 9 points, and then there are, I'll have to take a little bit of the Euler's geometry to explain these points. And according to the other theorems of Leicester's theorem of 9-point center, how does this point lie on a circle, and things like these. So for today, the 5 points of the heart center, just to recapitulate, they are 2 points on either side of the chest, 2 inches above the nipples, 2 finger breadth, it is said, and 2 below, and 1 in the center, below, and the 6th, the transcendental, is between the 2 above the nipples. Theoretically, it took me a little while how this complicated subject matter can be broken down into simple way that mind can understand. And besides that, there are so many questions that keep on coming. So each one of these has to be responded. So sometimes if there is a delay, just understand this. I have to make my living and continue the spiritual work and create a balance between the two. So we will continue this in tomorrow's session. How many sessions it will take, I do not know at the moment. Until tomorrow, because when I begin to speak, the many fine points keeps on surfacing, and these cannot be overlooked. Transferring something from consciousness to the mind is not an easy process. It's a difficult one. It requires a deep understanding and meticulous way to transfer something, the worldless into the world, the consciousness into the mind understanding. Only this much for this morning. Until tomorrow, take care and do have a blessed day.